Supersonic's money transfer is giving you an unbeatable bonanza from now until the end of October. Yes! From now till the end of October, you stand a chance of winning a bag of rice when you receive monies in the Gambia from UK, Europe, USA, Canada and Switzerland with Supersonic's money transfer. Amazing! So from now till the end of October, every time you receive monies in the Gambia from UK, Europe, USA, Canada and Switzerland, you stand a chance of winning a bag of rice. Only 100 bags available, so hurry now and be part of the 100 lucky winners in this special unbeatable bonanza from now until the end of October with Supersonic's money transfer. Enjoy our safe, fast, reliable and convenient money transfer service with the largest payout network in the Gambia with charges starting from $0. Yes! Visit the Google Play Store or the Apple Store today to download the Supersonic's money transfer app and enjoy excellent money transfer services only with Supersonics. The unbeatable bonanza with Supersonics.
Greetings to the Gambians by extension. Greetings to the rest of the continent. Today marks another brand new edition of the platform called The Conversation that comes away on Sendians VIP Magazine VIP TV, a platform that is meant to speak on social, moral, economic and political issues affecting our one continent and then finding some of the best ways forward to ameliorating these challenges, or should I say, concerns. And for today's edition of The Conversation here, we are very honored, should I say, very privileged to be in the one-on-one conversation with Mr. Alieu Jawara, who happens to be a younger nephew to Gambia's first president, the late His Excellency, whom I call the nobleman, Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara. Greetings to you and welcome to this platform, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we are very honored and very proud to have you today because it was quite too easy for us to have receive you on this platform, which is very beautiful and speaks a lot about how humble you are. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
For those that are watching us from East African nation of Nairobi, Kenya, the Gapam, Chida, and the leader Merime will say to you, Jumbo, Dabadi yako kumfutanya yezangu, say nakupenda pia, that is love you so dearly much. I say to you, Asante Kukmansada, when you quit to sisi in the Swahili language. That is a thank for supporting us here. Those in the Rwanda, in the Ichigwanda language, will say to you, Abagwanda, Napakunda, Moise. Of course, in Freetown, Sierra Leone, Mendes speaking Sierra Leoneans will say to you, Kawi Nabi in other hand, I say to you, Kai Gorma to the Kono speaking people of the same diamond mining region of that very country, Freetown. So I say to you, Wente. And to the Aku speaking people will say, when Akushio to Liberia, my own country, then Pela will say to you, Kumanjuka Kolega, Liberia, Kukle Kugatana. To Nigerians, Western Nigerian, Yoruba speaking people will say to you, Baonisha Baolomo Otuzo Jomenta. Of course, so Eastern Nigerian, predominantly Igbo say to you, one name the number Ikaraka Iji, Mechukwa Biama, Amama Siamashi Oshimiria Tata, Eku, Mechuko Kiki. Strengthening all of you wherever you are under the sound of our voices here. And to the northern part of the country of Nigeria that is dominated Islamic, will say to you, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Of course, in the Hausa language, will say to you, Sanu Sanu. On the other hand, I say to you, Sanu Edua. To the Gambian people, will say to you, Abayanda Sukono Kubayanda Famuketa, will say to you, we won't ever forget you for the love and support of Sembians VIP Magazine and TV, to the world of Zenangadef. I say to you, the Malamona Fati, the Malamusa Fati, say, I don't know to the full house, Berikejan, Asude, Nalaga, and I say to you, Jamtan, I say, Edima Moja, that is the official. So, the other much. To French speaking African, we say to you, merci de nous support, say that is thanks for supporting us, thanks for supporting us. This is your platform, The Conversation here. Many thanks to our producer, Mr. Al Hassan Bokum, who is behind the camera to ensure that the edited version of this interview is meant for public consumption after we will have conducted this survey. Quickly to you, so sorry for the time we have to give it that Pan-African flavor. I want you to drive us, for purpose of our diverse audience, people that are going to be watching you from Botswana, like Costadino Peloteri. You're going to have people from the South Africa, like Maite, Lelele, Zaka, and other people from this country and the rest of the continent. Drive us through who is Mr. Alieu Jame, and then connects it with your relationship with the late president.
Thank you. Sorry, but I wouldn't be able to say it in all the languages that you just did. It's very quite impressive. Okay. My name is Alieu Jawara, and nephew to Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara, who happens to be from the same parents, the same mom and dad as my own father, Basadi.
Okay. That's very beautiful, dear, for our guest. Before this interview, we had a conversation and you were very zealous and ready to honor such a call for to speak about the life and legacy of Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara. Drive us through what was a relationship like with him outside of his leadership, your personal relationship as he was your uncle. Tell us about that chemistry between you two? What kind of man was he?
Oh, he was just the person I would just run to for solace, for advice, just for a friendship, a friendly conversation, a religious sitting and gathering and reciting the Quran. You know, he was someone I would just love to keep company, and I just cannot have enough of him. When I leave, it's like I just feel like coming back when is the next time I'm going to see him. And you know, and he reciprocated regardless of his advanced age. You know, he even took it to himself to even visit my orphanage at my house, and have a very jovial relationship with little orphans and give them hope, which is really, which sums up his life. He loves to give hope and to the hopeless, if you may call it.
That's beautiful. You hear the voice about Mr. Alieu Jawara here on the Zambian VIP Magazine and TV, a platform that is meant to speak on social, moral, economic, and political issues. He's talking to us about the life and the legacy of the late president of this country, His Excellency Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara. May his soul and the souls of all faithful departed rest in perfect peace here. This is a man who fought his entire life for the liberation and independence of this country for donkey years before the colonial master. And he happens to be your late uncle. What were sensitive principles about him that you can say to us? What kind of man was he? What was his lifestyle? What are core values that are very attached to him, as far as you can recall?
Oh, of course, way before I was born, but he was born from a very close-knit family, and studied Islamic sciences just like his elder brothers, like my father, from a very early age. And you know, fate would have it that he would be taken by one of his father's close friends, business partners, to far away from his hometown of Barajali to Banjul, the capital Bathurst, as it was known then, to study, to take a try on the different type of education. You know, all his brothers did Islamic education, the Quran, and all the Islamic sciences, and so he did. Until he was brought to Banjul to study something different. And it was not easy to be in Banjul those days. You know, it's like a celebration of the plague back then in the 50s, you know, in the 40s, in the 30s and 40s. So we are experiencing the coronavirus now, but they had a plague back then which didn't leave, which also killed a lot of people, you know. So, you know, he was a fighter. You know, he fought through those against the odds, survived, and no matter how improbable something is, he always saw light at the end of the tunnel, you know. And so his early upbringing really solidified him, prepared him for what was yet to come. In fact, it's by coincidence I use the word improbable, because that's what they called the Gambia when he was fighting for independence, that this country cannot survive on its own, you know, and economically, politically, it was just not viable. You know, it has a GDP per capita of less than $100 US. Then it didn't have the human capital that was necessary. Any economic analyst would tell you this country is not going to survive on its own. He was the only person who stood up above the rest and said, yes, it can. You know, we are going to work hard, and he believes in hard work, and hopefully I'll tell you more of that later. You know, and we have our sea, resources from the sea, we have the agriculture, we will do just fine. You know, some people negotiated, why don't you have some kind of a merger with Senegal, you know, and he would have none of it. You know, and he just believed in full independence, you know, even partial independence, he wouldn't do it, you know, against even other politicians back then. You know, he fought for that, and it was also sacrifice even before fight for independence. he was a leader of his people who were not represented in the general Combo area, you know, and they call it the protectorate back then, and he stood up for their rights and for their representation here, you know, against voice for the voiceless, which he completely believed in. So this was the man in short, that he just fought, and then, you know, when he went into politics, he gave up one of the most lucrative jobs, for example, you know, as a veterinary surgeon, to take up, you know, the fight for the people. And I know I'm talking too long on this, but if you compare him to, you know,
this is just to inject. This is not about politics. It is entirely about celebrating one of the greatest sons of not only the Gambia but the rest of the continent.
Absolutely.
It was not only a loss to the Gambia; it was a loss to the rest of the continent. This is one of the few African head of states that actually fought for the liberty of not only the respected nations, but the rest of the continent. So you have all of the time to talk about what a Mikel can learn about the Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara.
Yes. You know, if you consider just in recent memory, you look at successful presidents, in my view, again, of presidents like President Bill Clinton or President Obama, you know, who gave up, you know, lucrative jobs that they could have taken, rather than just taking public service, and which prepared them for the role to play as a leader, compared to, again, in my opinion, some presidents who are not as successful like Donald Trump, you know, who just looked for his personal interests before politics. So Sadoda did the same. In fact, there was a time that he even worked, you know, in a gas station, just to, you know, to support his family, rather than, you know, continue with the very luxurious, lucrative position he had in the veterinary before joining politics. So, you know, he did this, and also, in fact, working with the veterinary and working with the people, the farmers, being very close communication with the farmers, all of that sort of prepared him for the role to come as a leader. You know, if you know in Islamic science, you know, you see that all of the prophets had some relationship with cattle and sheep during their early ages, and this is something because they learned to be forbearing and to take care of the weak, the very weak, and that's what he continued throughout his life, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah, you just hear the voice there of my guest here, Mr. Alieu Jawara, here, who is appearing live on our Sambian VIP magazine and TV here in the Gambia here. Those that are following us on social media will see it's a brilliant opportunity to tap from this fountain of knowledge as he speaks on the life and legacy of the late president. It's non-political. It's not something that you got to be very, very ready to critique and what have you. We're talking about celebrating our own, so we're not discussing what you might be implying right now, but purely about his life, even as he lies in his grave. Now, let's before I come deeper into other matters, let's go back to his family life. What value, what morals was he able to inculcate in his people? Because the Jawara people are one of the most moderate people I have come across in this country. What moral did he plant into the lives of these people? Even as I see that it's exhibited in you, just from a few lines of conversation. You didn't set eyes on me when you had all of this invitation here. What was the driving force that made you people this moderate?
You know, he played an important role in that.
Okay.
And first of all, he believes in hard work, and he believes that in life there are no shortcuts. You just got to do things. You got to earn things. Whatever you get in life is supposed to be earned. He believes in that, and he inculcated that in the lives of everybody who actually rubbed shoulders with him, especially his immediate family, us, you know, the sons of his brothers. You know, I can give you a small example of, you know, I worked hard all my life, and I had a I applied for a Commonwealth scholarship, which was the most prestigious scholarships back then, and somebody, a family friend, a teacher, my former teacher, once came to my mom. My father was already late by then, but came to my mom and said, listen, thank you, amen. And said to my mom, you know what, we need to speak with the president. He was the president at the time. We need to speak with the president to make sure the scholarship board doesn't do anything wrong. They don't play any foul games to make sure the one that deserves the scholarship gets it. And I was the one who was most deserving of the scholarship because of my grades and because of my performance throughout high school.
Okay.
So he was just afraid. We are very close friends, and he was afraid corruption could play a role and it could be given to somebody else, you know, instead of the one who was most deserving. And he thought if the president is aware and keeps a close eye on the scholarship board, they would be afraid to do anything wrong except to give it to the one that deserves it, which coincidentally happens to be his nephew. So my mom, who knows the president, the former president, more than the one that was speaking, you know, said to him, Sir Dawda will not like that. He would not like us telling him to have any say in the scholarship, the award of scholarships, you know.
That's
so,
integrity.
yes, you know, if my son deserves it, he'll get it. We are sure that he deserves it, and it's in the hands of God. You know, it doesn't always happen that the person that deserves it gets it, but let's just pray. But Sir Dawda will be really angry if we talk to him to influence, or not even to influence, but to put his mind, his you know, his mouth or his eyes to have any participation whatsoever. And the only time he knew that I got the scholarship was only a few days before I traveled to Canada with the scholarship. You know, my mother took me to his office, the president's office at the time, and you know, to bid farewell that, you know what, I have a scholarship, I'm going. And he says, you know, he's not surprised because he was invited to the speech and prize giving ceremony at the Gambia High School back then, you know, as the president, and he used to see me collecting all of the prizes, like he called it, you know, and he said this is the only time, the only opportunity somebody has to be greedy is to work hard and collect all the prizes, to work hard and get this best scholarship. You know, if man had to be greedy, this is over 28 years ago now, it's almost exactly 28 years ago actually, but I remember most of the words still today, that, you know what, if a man has to be greedy for anything, is, you know what, to work hard and make sure you get the best scholarship. And I'm glad you got it. You know, and he gave me some words of advice which I still remember today, like, you know, east is east, west is west, and home is best. You know, make sure you come back, make sure you don't forget your home. And it was just the aftermath of the Cold War. Most of you may not even know that the Cold War ever existed, you know, but it was the aftermath of the Cold War. And he was saying things like, you know, don't be distracted by, you know, who is right. Is it the CIA or the KGB or, you know, is it NATO? Is it Warsaw Pact? You know, so these are some of the things that he was telling me that day. And, you know, don't worry about is Saddam Hussein right? Is George H.W. Bush? You know, he just called him George Bush back then. But, you know, later on we had another president who's George Bush. His son was George W. Bush. The first president was George H.W. Bush, his father. So don't worry about George Bush or Saddam Hussein, you know, just don't lose your focus on your education. So these are some of the words that he said on that day, and very inspiring words which I'll never forget. And you know, the fact that nobody would go to him to get an unfair advantage of anything in the job market or scholarship or
any areas,
you know, contracting or whatever, just shows that the family knows where he stands for that, and he would not take any of that. So it was special.
That's beautiful. And this is something very strange for contemporary African leaders. they will want to have monopoly over ideas and then opportunities and what have you. But it was not the case with your late uncle, who did not even want to get involved in the procedures of awarding scholarships, so to speak. So what message, does that send a message to contemporary African leaders?
Yeah, it does. It does. I think they just have to study his life, you know, you know, to keep things at arm's length, you know. I remember his successor, for example, any scholarship that was given, you know, was attributed to him, that he is the one that gave the scholarship or something, or he's the one that donated this to this, you know. So they should just have the departments work independently from the executive, you know. I can give a lot of examples. I remembered Honorable Amadou Jallo. I was Omar Amadou Jallo. I was in a forum with him a few weeks ago, and there is commonly known as OJ. He said something interesting. He says he was a minister under Sir Dawda. He gave a position.
You see the same OJ that was shortly a minister of, is it agriculture or something?
Yes. He was. Okay. That was him. Yes. Under Sir Dawda, he was minister of water resources, and later on as the Minister of Agriculture under Sir Dawda as well. Okay. You know, so he said he appointed someone who was a staunch supporter of Sir Dawda's opposition, and you know, the NCP then. So he people, you know, in a political rally, you know, reported that, you know, during the rally said, you know what, OJ did this, you know, he gave the position to so and so. And he proudly came out and said, yes, I did. And by doing so, I'm following the footsteps of Sir Dawda, because Sir Dawda would have done the same, because he believes that we give positions based on merit, not based on political affiliations or anything else, you know. So, you know, this is what he imbued political, democratic values and rule of law into everybody that worked with him. He didn't believe in, you know what, you know, he doesn't see tribe or race, color, age. You know, during his reign, you know, he encouraged young people. In fact, it was unknown in Africa back then that his vice president in 1982 was only 35 years old, you know. So, and OJ himself, when he was a minister, he was barely 30. So, you know, and he talked to young people and he sought advice from young people as if, you know what, they perhaps even older than him. That's how he is. That's how he lived his life.
Yeah, you following the conversation right here on Sendians VIP Magazine and TV with me here, Thony Mikel, who talks to the responsibility for inspiring and motivating the current generation of young Africans in the actualization of their respective dreams and preaching the message of peace and national unity, as well as revitalizing Africanization policy that speaks about good governance, social justice, democracy, human rights, and most importantly, the African unity. I want you to do a comparative analysis of his administration as far as you can recall, in terms of governance, policies, and implementation of policies and what have you. What do you think is missing in the current generation of leadership in the Gambia, by extension the rest of the continent, that differs with his administration in terms of governance and policies and units and what have you? Do you have anything that is missing in the conversation today?
Oh, well, yes. You know, just like I was alluding to earlier, you know, OJ, in fact, during the same conversation said something interesting also, that during their political rallies and, you know, tour of the country, you know, you never see a permanent secretary, a civil servant, or even the secretary general accompany them for any of the tours, because, and he believes that those are the mechanisms that run the nation. They're there whether the political party in power today is there or another political party is there. They should remain, and they shouldn't be used as weapons for political gains, to influence, exactly. And that is something that's missing today. And again, like I said earlier also, he doesn't believe that if you are his opponent, you shouldn't be in, you shouldn't be in the government, you know.
Once he has something to offer, he gives you the chance.
Exactly, and he doesn't, you know, he doesn't see his opponents as enemies, you know. You know, he believes that, you know, as long as you have something to offer, let's work together and develop the country. And then he would quite often invite his strongest opponents to discuss matters of national interest, you know. So these are some of the things missing today and what they can learn from him. So by doing so, you invite all the best brains in the country, and you don't just focus on the people that just support your agenda. You know, they may not be supporting it for the right reasons after all. So these are some of the things that I think if they think about it, and just like the democracy and the rule of law, will do much better.
Okay, that's beautiful to hear from you, Mr. Alieu Jawara here. Let's look at, he served as the first Prime Minister of this country from 1962 up to 1970, that's 8 years, before being the President again afterwards up to 1994. Do you think what he did for this country, the fight that he did to have given independence and liberty to the Gambia, do you think as he lies in his grave, was he well celebrated by the Gambian people?
Thank you. That's well, that you know what, if you say he did not have the most fitting end to his reign, that's also up for debate. You know, if you want to be very philosophical about it, or you just see it, you know, from the lame human knowledge, for example, you may think that he ought to leave office, you know, in a limousine to, you know, perhaps the International Independence Stadium, and hand over the reign just like he collected it from the British, the British in 1965. But God doesn't work like that all the time. You can show many examples of Prophet, even a Prophet Muhammad, who was driven out. Prophet Muhammad is better than him, by the way, okay? We all know that. You know, the prophets of God are better than him. Most of them were driven out of their homes, and some were killed, even killed. You know, the person who wrote the most important book on the face of the earth, you know, the Quran, by the way, is not authored by man, it's authored by God. So, but the person who wrote the most important book, which is the Sahih Bukhari, known as Bukhari, you know, died in isolation, you know, condemned by people. You know, these are people who should have been celebrated, you know, as demigods, you know, but they had not a very good ending, but people, their legacy continued and lived on. So I'm not going to say that he did not have a fitting end to his reign, you know, by young military guys who had no clue in how to govern, you know, but it was destined, and he believes in that too. He believes in predestiny, you know, so it was okay that he lived long enough to see the end of that regime, and for people to draw their own conclusions. And I was sitting with him just like I'm sitting with you right now, when his successor, Mr. Jammeh, was, you know, going out in exile. I was just sitting with him like this. We were reading the Quran. So, and he said so many interesting things, which in fact I posted on Facebook. You know, so it was okay, and he saw that happen in his lifetime. And he saw, when I visited him many times, you see him watching the TRRC, you know, seeing. So he was vindicated, and that's enough celebration. His legacy lives in us. We live according to his principles. You know, those of us who met him, who learn, and then we can go back to the archives and learn from him. His religious tolerance, you know. In fact, at some point in his life, he was a Christian. You know, he converted to Christianity and back to Islam again, you know, and all these things were just, you know, everybody, some people lambasted him. Why did you allow the Ahmadiyyas into the country, for example? He believes in the freedom. They are human beings. They have the right to exist, you know, and some, you know, religious clerics would lambast him for things like that. But he completely believes in freedom, and everybody was free to say anything, and the biggest laugh you'll ever get out of him is when you tell him a joke about himself. You know, he will enjoy it. He will laugh really hard. So this is the person, and just great man, to be honest.
You led him to his resting place in the grave on that day when he was finally being laid to rest by the state. What was run through your mind that day?
It was
How was your
chills.
state that day?
It was, you know, chills. You know, my mind went back all the way to my childhood days when my father would take me to his farm on Sunday, for example, when he would be there, you know, picking grass, you know, organizing his crops, and some people, family members and friends would come and help. You know, we'd all help, and when you're there, you wouldn't know who is the president. You know, he was like everybody else. So I went down memory lane on that day, and so I grabbed him, placed him there. But I also felt what the Arabs would call sakina, for example, tranquility, peace. You know, and of course, when I stood in front of him, as he was, you know, leaving his last breath, also, I felt this peace. You know, nobody even dared to cry. You just felt, you know, as if there's angels of mercy descending, you know, on in the room, and that was happened in the grave. You know, down there, it was so comfortable. He had a comfortable life, you know, throughout his life. And the grave looks like the most comfortable of all of it, to be honest with you, yeah.
I'm having a chill in my body.
Yeah, me too.
That's beautiful. This is the conversation here on Sendian's VIP Magazine, VIP TV, your Pan-African media house that connects the rest of the continent. And we are here with our Mr. Jawara, who happens to be the younger nephew of the late first president of this country, His Excellency Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara. May his soul and the souls of all faithful departed rest in perfect peace. The essence is to celebrate his life, to celebrate him living in his grave, so that Gambians can still have the realization that they have a responsibility to their state through their own meaningful contribution in whatever way that they can. Now, you've spoken about the morals, the values he inculcated into his families, by extension, the country. There are people that are going to be watching this interview here. What are practical evidence of development you can point out and say, oh, these are things that the president did at his time that I can't forget about it, as far as the country is concerned and his leadership was concerned? What are things that he did that you can point out?
You know, I think the biggest development is actually in the humans, what he inculcated in the humans. Okay. You know, bringing people up from almost nothing, non-existence, non-viable existence. And, you know, and then he first started with the national development, you know, projects, you know, which became a household name. In fact, in Mandinka, you know, they call Tesito, you know, Jawara ko Tesito, you know, let's tie our waist and work hard, you know. So he did rice cultivation in a grand scale in Jahali and between Jahali and Pachar with, you know, irrigation. And back then, Gambia produced more than 50% of the rice that was consumed in this country, you know, and after he left, not even 10 to 15 years, Gambia now is producing less than 5%, you know. So that was Jahali Pacha. When you go there today, you feel like crying, you know, it's a complete disaster. And, you know, he knew that people had to survive, shouldn't depend on aid, foreign aid, even though he was friends with the world, you know, from the East and the West. And just briefly, you can see that during the Silver Jubilee of the country in 1989, you will see on the same stage, you know, he invited the President of the United States, George Bush. He couldn't come, but he sent his son, George W. Bush, who became the president in the year 2000. You know, next to him was President Babangida of Nigeria, Princess Anne of the UK. There was the PLO leader Yasser Arafat. These are staunch enemies, you know, but he managed to put them on the same stage, you know, and this was how he was. You know, he believes in bringing people together, friends together. He was friends with everybody. He doesn't believe in the fact that, you know, enemy of an enemy is a friend. You know, he can be friends with you and friends with you even though you don't like each other. And then with his influence, he can bring people together, which he did so successfully. Nobody can do it better, you know. So, you know, like it say also, if you, Kwame Nkrumah said something like that, if you criticize me for the heights that I've reached, also do not forget the depths that I started from, you know. So the depths that they started from, he reached humongous heights, you know. All of this, they had to develop roads, you know, throughout the country. You know, you can travel, you know, between Banjul all the way to Fatoto, you know, it was all, you know, which was not there during the colonial era, you know. So the infrastructure, you know, the telecommunication was the best in Africa during his time, you know. One German guy told me that the Gamtel back then, there was no mobile cell phones back then, but the telecommunication system we had was just as good as the one they had in Germany back then. That was in '92, when I was traveling all the way to '94. You know, so these were developments that didn't have any precedence. They started from zero. You know, so his development in the infrastructure, the National Stadium, you know, it was just great. There's a lot. You can count them forever.
That's beautiful. We're driving close to the end of this very beautiful interview here with Mr. Jawara as he speaks on the life and legacy of the late first President Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara. His Excellency, may his soul and the souls of all faithful departed continue to rest in perfect peace in the bosom of the Almighty Allah, shall I say, the Almighty God. Quickly, your nation, the Gambia, several years after the departure of your uncle, still remains one of the most peaceful places that anybody can be. But internally, we know that we are getting divided. I say we, even though I come from Liberia, but with a Pan-African spirit, I call myself a Gambian.
Absolutely.
So we're getting divided based on party lines, we're getting divided based on the regional lines, we're getting divided based on the tribal lines, to some extent, religious lines, so to speak. I want you to speak to the Gambian people in your best local language that you speak, if it is Wolof or Mandinka, on the essence of borrowing from the expertise of Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara in the essence of peace and unity in spite of our political differences and our social differences and what have you. Talk to your masses, especially as they head to the poll come 2021 in the general and presidential election. Speak to the Gambian people to maintain that spirit of oneness, that Gambianization policy. Unite all Gambians. You can start with Mandinka and possibly change that to Wolof afterwards. Okay. You have 1 minute to do so.
Oh, okay. Just linga just ngake ko sadawda ka nyamin drom mo be ke kilinti ama jube ko nyi mu mandinko leti ni tata la sokono ita fala ko nyina mu serero ti mu fulo ti mu jolati ala muso fulo ay muso fulo min futu akolem anata min futu ko take fulo then anata min futu after that mo munati serero hani man ko ne ma futu so momo comfortable tela itata ya ye language min no ye kawo min no anika wala fo anene ma muta do ko la based on ni mu mandin quality amu fulolti amu jolalati ate just alafta minna walam ko mo e minno e o bara wala ala be nyinin kala wala la in Arabic mansakewol e ka fo e nyaadile mas'ul mi an ko e kawle nyinin ka be nyinin kala yawmul qiyam ala be nyinin kala yela ye muneke ila manto ila jongol ye mi bulay bulo kono ye mutaje nyaadile ye mara nyaadile ala be nyinin kala le mas'ul, and he believed in that sonto wala le alon ko ibe ba nyinin kala so aka nyine mul yamari nyine la always so ning ate birate be maro lola tribal difference man soto mo nene ma lon ko nyimu mandin kolati nyimu surwalati ibe position to mu bi ka hani mira yaje mubi ka hani mira ko mtew mandin ko din tata jang ta soto la wala mu jolalti musora wala mo ne me mira wala mo ne me mira ko kamoni ila muqadiyani lati they have equal rights imu qadiyanati ahmadiyalati imu christianity imu shiality imu protestanity anglican fankol everybody was the same on the Sir Dawda. So ninga mira wala drong no tamandi na baluto na manimol ka manyo nyaming Cairo dambande betel batil inshallah.
Can you replicate this in Wolof?
Yes. Just linden wal suñ topé la fi Sir Dawda mom ñu gis ne mom xamut difference jola Wolof sarahule mom jabaram first jabaram akula won second jabaram Paul third jabaram séré la won so démé ci kiram lo laka bo mun bobu la laka bo comfortable bobu la laka so c'est Wolof you know so mom xamut difference in tribe suñu jël ligay kat tamit ligay katam ci kiram diko gëna jigéñ tamit mom xelaatut ne ki jola la wara neka sol se la wara neka you know God sami motax it was very easy sax ku coup d'état ko because God sami yépp mom jëlut ne kenn ki suma mbokala motax dafa wara gëna jigéñ so ñepp dañ émon ci mom gisul kenn in tribal lines gisul kenn ne Wolof la ndax Christian la Shia la Sunni or this you know nekkoon na xarit outside internationally with Iran in fact during his time moo tax Iran ak Iraq ñu am peace xam nga so moom gisul ne Iran ñi Shia lañ ñi Sunni lañ dafa ñëpp la émale woon ñëpp la émale xelaatut kenn ne kii yow da nga different ak keneen ki because of this so dafa believe ne nga def hard nga work nga deliver to the best of your ability hard work moom daf ko dee wax always tesito the first day of independence mu ngi wax tesito liggéey jot na Gambia am na boppam loolu la woy boobu noonu the day of independence la loolu génna te loolu la believe xam nga so believe difference in tribe or difference in religion loolu Sir Dawda rahimahullah xamu ko so suñ tryé loolu suñ life so ñu deal at based on merit based on lu nekk ci boppa bi ñu génnee yépp xam nga xelaatut ne kii mag la kii xalel la comme luñ ko waxee the youngest vice president in the history of the Gambia was Bibi Dabo in 1982 mu ngi ko jëli he was only 35 years old so cabinet minister sami da nga gis ne ñoom 30 some the late 20s xam nga di nga gis different tribes throughout so soo ko divided si ethnic living bi nga def percentage of it da nga gis ne almost equal na percentage of jola bu nekk si cabinetam bi cabinet of fula bu nekk soo ko seetee tamit ak percentage of jola bu nekk in Gambia da nga gis ne about the same so nañ try loolu ñu faate completely about te gisul tamit ne kii opposition bi la dafa believe ne jox ko chance mu deliver whether he is my enemy believe in kii suma enemy la whether he is my opposition he has the right pour mu nekk suma opposition nañ liggéey ak moom te moo tax lu bari opposition members am ñu bari dafa win back their heart ko dañ gis ne kii moom suy deal ak man xelaatu ne man maa ngi doon wax si radio bi maa ngi koo saaga maa ngi koo def nii mu ne moom that is part of him that is part of being a leader unfortunately wax na ko suñ benn family member kooku ne ko yow dañ la dee saaga always te loolu neexul ñu mu ne ko déedéet loolu dee xanaa soo leen buggee ma resign from politics waaye as long as maa ngi nekk politician loolu dafa ànd ak liggéey bi saaga dafa ànd ak liggéey bi so loolu la dee wax nit ñi so suñ toppee moom exemple am insha allah duñ am benn problème ñëpp dañ nekk benn te ñëpp benn lañ in the first place so doo ko xam ba nga rap nit ki nga boo koo suul doo gis benn difference kii dafa amoon xaalis kii amutoon xaalis kii dafa kii joolaa la woon kii serahule la woon kii nii la woon soo ko rappee nga ko dugal si baameelam bi wallahi amul benn difference ñëpp benn lañ
Mashallah. That's a very strong one there from here. One key word that I took from you was yep benala. And I say to you, yep benala, you jabalance. I say, not to disturb you much, but I want you to replicate this to the rest of the continent. You have Costa de Pelotero there from Botswana. I say to you, a readable header with Linting Jahaho. That is thank for your presence here on the show here. Those in Peters Maribel, Lele Zakar and Mighty, as well as Nutondo Langa, I say to you, in the KwaZulu Natal language, I say to you, Zangonanim Zanzi, Geya Nembengelela, here on the show. I'll replicate this on the rest of the continent because the constraints, the challenges, the division between and amongst Gambians, it's the same in Liberia, it's the same in Freetown, it's the same in Nigeria. With the Hausa, the Igbos, and the Yorubas, you have the Central African Republic of Anti-Selika and the Balika, the Islamic and Christianity group. They're fighting themselves. French-speaking Cameroon and English-speaking Cameroon, they're fighting themselves. And the story is all about the same. Replicate the same piece of advice that you did in Mandinka and Wolof for the rest of the continent in English language in at least 30 seconds because we're driving to the
30 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, I just say just behave like Sir Dawda, and who doesn't see tribe. He just sees a human being and the value of the human being. You know, this is what he viewed on the Gambian and anybody who mingled with him, that everybody is the same under the eyes of God, who is the right person to judge. And we are all the same, we act the same. What is different is that, you know, your product, if he feels that you can bring value, whether you are an opponent, a political opponent, he doesn't see that. He doesn't see gender. In fact, that's another important thing which I didn't even say in the other languages. You know, his cabinet had gender equity. They had equity based on tribes and based on religion. You know, you had Christians, you had Mandinka, you had Fula, you had all the tribes in Gambia were well represented during his administration. So this is something that we have to learn from him, and we behave like that as brothers. We are brothers, we are family. Whether you are Christian or you're Muslim, you are Shia, you are Sunni, you are Protestant, you are Anglican, you are Orthodox, whatever denomination, we are all the same under God. And that was what he believed.
That's beautiful. Just before we take leave of you, any final words? Once more?
I thank you very much, and I'm very impressed with your command of all these languages. I'm a little jealous. I wish I can communicate in all these languages. And I really hope we do this again. Sure. And I thank all the viewers who are viewing now and who will be viewing it later. And I just think that we should just celebrate the life of Sir Dawda. We should learn more about him. And he was a gift from God. His name is Kairaba, which means peace, which means great peace. He was named, christened as Kairaba. So that was no coincidence. He became the greatest peacemaker of our lifetime.
Thank you so very much for having us today on this very show here. Those of you that have been following us right now, we say a very huge salute to you for joining us right here on Sambians VIP Magazine and TV, a platform that is meant to speak on social, moral, economic, and political issues affecting our one continent and finding some of the best ways forward to ameliorating these challenges, as should I say, concerns. Salute to the rest of the continent. If you like, follow us. Bye-bye.
Supersonic's money transfer is giving you an unbeatable bonanza from now until the end of October. Yes! From now till the end of October, you stand a chance of winning a bag of rice when you receive monies in the Gambia from UK, Europe, USA, Canada, and Switzerland with Supersonic's money transfer. Amazing! So from now till the end of October, every time you receive monies in the Gambia from UK, Europe, USA, Canada, and Switzerland, you stand a chance of winning a bag of rice. Only 100 bags available, so hurry now and be part of the 100 lucky winners in this special unbeatable bonanza from now until the end of October with Supersonic's money transfer. Enjoy our safe, fast, reliable, and convenient money transfer service with the largest payout network in the Gambia with charges starting from $0. Yes! Visit the Google Play Store or the Apple Store today to download the Supersonics Money Transfer app and enjoy excellent money transfer services only with Supersonics. The unbeatable bonanza with Supersonics.